Malik. We are honored to have him as well. It is what his presentation is about entrepreneurship. He's well trained, well educated, plus he's experienced as well in this area. And what he's going to talk about is going to be the Angel Network, which is one of his initiative he has started, and his plan is to go for 5 trillion US dollar type of a fund. He has got a lot of competition for the community. He was also nominated and shortlisted for a couple of awards. One was from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum here from the United Arab Emirates as well. And also another one was, Ellis Island Medal of Honor. So it is, we are looking forward hearing from you a lot of good tips about how to start up like the new business, SMEs here, especially the environment, which is a COVID, and would like to have a second, income generation tool as well. So welcome to this conference, Dr. Tausif. You can start your presentation anytime.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu was-salamu alayka Rasulullah. As-salatu Habiballah. Thank you, the conference organizer, for giving this opportunity for speaking at this prestigious conference. And today's topic of mine is importance of angel network in the halal economy. Brother Tariq, for introducing me in a very nice way, very humble way. I'm very excited about this. So Jazakallah khair, Brother Tariq, for introducing me. The top, I can see the slide screen.
Yeah, the slides are there. We can see the slides.
Okay, I can see that now. Okay. Yeah, I just want to give a small introduction, as Brother Tariq did. It's very important, this introduction, not just to glamorize myself, but how the journey started, evolved into the halal economy. My parents moved to America in 1990, and eventually I also moved. But then I studied here in India, and then I went to UK, I studied there, and I was advertising executive. And when I started my career in education as a student, I had something called dyslexia. And it had a lot of challenges because learning disorder makes it very difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me in thinking in not out the box, not in the box, not half glass full, not half glass empty, but I became like an opportunist. In fact, I'm writing a book on this, theory of opportunists, that how you look at opportunity. And Alhamdulillah, I grew up in a very Islamic background, and my uncle, my maternal uncle, taught me a lot of Islamic stuff, both Shia Maslak, Sunni Maslak, and they gave me a lot of knowledge. So when I grew, I started looking things in a different way. And then I studied here. Then finally, I got into the American Muslim consumer market because in 2007 and 8, the Great Recession happened. And I lost everything. Over the years, I've been very successful. I lost everything. And I made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah ta'ala, when I was 17, 18, you make me super famous. At the age of 21, I had a company with India's #1, pop star. What happened now? And I stumbled into a report which was done by JWT and Ogilvy Worldwide, which talked about American Muslim consumer market in 2007, and it was estimated at $170 billion. And mainstream advertising agencies doing that, it gave me a lot of actions to start. I started thinking, how should I use this knowledge in a commercial way? Now, most of the Muslim organizations or companies headed by Muslims, they don't do proper marketing and branding. And as Professor Muhammad Hassan talked earlier, we need to do proper branding. Either they become too humble or they become too aggressive. They lose out the opportunity. So what I thought is, how can I use this data and change it into commercial value? And I found out that spelling bee competitions are done across America. And I started the Muslim spelling bee competition. And because this is a marketing conference, I use internet to the fullest. And social media was just happening, smartphones were just happening in 2009. We started rolling it out. But the whole heart was, the premise of the project was to make it, you know, based on Islamic values. Now, a lot of people, when they want to do social work or community work, they end up doing NGO or not for profits. But when you look at the fiqh and Sharia, there's nothing like not for profits. It always said you do business and you give it back to community. You do business and directly give it back to community. Unfortunately, we are stuck up into fundraising and NGOs, which is not Islamic based. You might have a fatwa around it, but the Quran Hadith doesn't talk about it. So we went back and used the social enterprise model of Rasulullah Sallam that creates something commercial value and share it with the community, rather than take it from the community and reshare. So what we did is we went to American Muslim schools and told them, we are doing the Muslim spelling bee, why don't you host it? Okay, and create a bazaar mela around the competition, so the school also gets away from donation. They make some kind of revenue out of this project. Poor Muslim kids were charged $0, and people who could afford, we charged them $50. Mashallah, that project became America's second largest competition, and I started learning the American Muslim consumer market. And I ended up doing a doctorate in that. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. Now, again, rolling it out, I started seeing different things. And in my previous slide, I mentioned, when I did this American Muslim consumer market, a tragedy hit that time. Both my parents became sick in America. My father passed away, and I decided to get my mother back to India. When I came back to India, I started researching how can I use my American Muslim consumer research into the Indian context. And I found that 20% of India's population approximately is Muslims, and they're not there in startups. And all the challenges I faced as a Muslim entrepreneur over the years, living in a non-Muslim country, I didn't have access to Islamic banking or Islamic finance. So I always had to do bootstrap, means I had to do my own business, and I was 100% okay with it. But if there was funding, we could have scaled it up. So I saw an opportunity. Why don't I get all the Muslim entrepreneurs under a single network? And we call this thing All India Muslim Business Startup Network. And it was a 4-pillar foundation. What we do is, at the first pillar, we do HNI business networking events for Muslim entrepreneurs in India at a 5-star hotel. People come, pay, and they network with each other. At our networking events, except for the main conference, there are no speakers. Everyone just comes with business cards, makes an announcement about their introduction, the requirements, and people just get together for that. And even at our conferences, people are not even interested in eating lunch. And then, because it is more business. Second thing I realized based on my American experience, that Muslim schools are struggling with money. And because they have to constantly ask people for zakat, fitra, and sadaqah to run it. I went to the schools and I told them we have already worked in a similar model, but on a smaller scale, just at a competition. Why don't we set up incubation acceleration center at your school? Now, incubation acceleration center in the startup world is where you take your idea or your startup, and that ecosystem helps you germinate and excel in a better way. We went to first school was Ikra school in my city in Pune in India, and we talked to Mr. Salim, and Mr. Salim and Mr. Anjum Namdar. We talked to them. They were looking funding for a building. We said, why don't you look at a way where you can set up an incubation center and where we can run it commercially? Now, how it works? At this Muslim schools, people can get their ideas from children to teachers to parents to the communities. Everyone can get their idea. They make an application, and then the management issues all this thing. And there we get them funding. Now, these are all doable business. So we don't give them karza hasna. We don't give them zakat, fitra, sadaqah. We become equal partner. And that's the vision of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one ummat. So we come together and invest in that. That idea became so profound that India's top newspaper covered it. And it became a rocking kind of a thing. Okay. Then in doing that, we came to know a learning. So the editor was asking this lady, how do you feel? She felt, when I go back home, I feel very proud and my kids feel very motivated. The reason is I'm not getting charity. I'm not getting handout to do my business. Okay. I'm not getting karza hasna. I'm becoming equal partner with successful business people in the business, and they will help me scale up. And that was very motivating. Like, instead of when you give zakat, fitra, sadqa, or karza hasna, people feel that they have lost out. They have come to charity. But when you become investor, it changes. Now, the second thing what we did is, uh, just to make our project transparent, we got into blockchain. And in understanding blockchain, we said, I hit upon an idea. Why can't I tell these, get people to do crypto mining? Now, this is not trading. Crypto mining is a backend technology where it's like a postman putting a stamp on an envelope. So when data comes on the blockchain, the miners put a stamp and they get a fee to process the data. And that's where I thought, why don't people coming from villages, they can, instead of coming to cities to work in, Uber Eats or Uber, these kind of stuff, they can be at home and they can do crypto mining. I went to, one of the largest uh, chamber of commerce, the Dalit Chamber of Commerce. I gave them the idea and I proposed the theory of reverse migration. Okay. And these were small startups where people can start business with $200,000 investment. And that too, the government of India could fund that through Stand Up Startup India program. And it became a very big thing. And I'm actually writing a theory on reverse migration. And we are working on a very big project in one of the European countries on that now. Now, while doing that, I thought I have to step up my work into the startup ecosystem and established a venture capital fund. Okay. Can you go to the next slide, please? And as I've been researching for years, I hit upon an idea of halal economy and the $5 trillion economy. And I decided to launch the Halal Angels Network. But over time, when I came back from America, how things were turning up in the last few years, I got politically involved. And I started, talking how, ex-president, former President Trump was going against Muslim. Because of that, I got into it. Secondly, I got into it because healthcare in America is very bad and going to college is very expensive. So I thought, as a Muslim at a particular position, I should be in the political field and do work around that. So this is a little background how I started, how my life is going. And then, maybe we can go to the next slide. Now, this is very critical as I built my story around it. While we were working on the Halal Angels Network, All India Muslim Business Startup Network, I saw funding challenges for entrepreneurs. And as earlier Professor Muhammad Hassan talked about, we are not, the Muslim are spread across the world. So we are not lucky to be where we can get halal financing. There are on and off organizations, but they are not scalable and they're not funding in a big way. So there was a big challenge we were facing for the startups. A lot of people have been asking us, why don't you come, help us with investment? So I was toying up with an idea of setting up a venture capital company. Now, in the halal space, in the startup space, there are two kinds of funding. There are various, but two major. One is called the Angels Network, where angels put their own money. And there's venture capital, where people pull in a fund and then they invest into, the fund invest into startups. So I was trying to talk to this halal economy, $5 trillion, And I said, because I lived in London, I live in Middle East, and I live in America, in India, I decided to launch a venture capital fund, and I started doing paperwork for that. And then I was discussing with my mother, and then my mother said, don't do this venture capital fund. I said, why, mom? She said, the reason is you're taking somebody else's money in your fund, then reinvesting. By mistake, you invest $1 wrong in a business. On Yomal Kayama, you will be accountable for $1. Okay. And that's a problem. Other problem I see, if you're doing $100 million and you're going to lead the fund, when you have money, the shaitan can deviate you from your mind. I don't want my son to go the wrong way. I forbid you from doing that. And I totally agreed with my mom. And anyway, she was knowing about the angel network. She says, why don't you go with the angel network? So in the month of March, I was supposed to go to Malaysia in Minha's conference, and I wanted to launch it there, the Halal Angels Network. But then what happened is COVID happened. And I got the best launch of my life. I was massaging my mom's legs, and because she has a spinal cord surgery. And I took permission from her. I told mom, can I launch it, my Halal Angels project, from your feet? Because Allah and its Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, under the feet of the mother is the heaven. So there's no better place to launch the product but then your feet, under your feet. And your heart is connected to Takhte Taus, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave me permission and I launched it. And unbelievable, it just has gone viral. Every day it becomes big. Every day we get featured. Every day we get this. The interesting part is, when we launched it, we were introduced to a company, SSC Capital, on LinkedIn, and it was headed by Salum Awad. Now, this company is based out of Tanzania. Now, Tanzania is East Africa. And the first migration of Muslims didn't happen to Medina. It went to East Africa. So we got the istikhara from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're at the right track. And when we put the whole angel network, we didn't want to be an angel network which is traditional. So we launched an initiative called the Khadijah Rajyanathan initiative, where we want to get 1,001 women in an ecosystem where they can cross-collaborate, upsell, downsell, everything like an ecosystem. And that's where the idea becomes so big. And Bibi Khadijah Radiallahu Ta'ala was the first investor in Islam. She was an angel investor. So we wanted to take the Blessed Mother's name and start the project. And in doing so, we also hit upon an idea that post-Brexit, UK can be the gateway for halal ethical finance. So this is the first phase. In 10 months' time, we have been featured across the globe. My LinkedIn has been getting at least 100, invitations on a day. 27 finance ministers we have got connected on LinkedIn directly. And when we were putting the whole halal, the Khadijah Razina initiative, I spoke to few people, our Muslim sisters. I have known them since childhood, as family members, as co-workers. And when I approached them, I said, I'm doing this. So we were all welcomed by very highly successful, Muslim sisters. One is Iram Zaidi. She's a Canadian Indian. She works with, women's rights. We have Hawa Bilai. She's a British Indian. She's a renowned food chef. We have Dr. Munaza Afreen. She's an academician researcher on leadership. Then we have Bushra Shah. She's a lawyer. And we have sister Nausheen Faruqi. She's a marketing expert from Middle East. And recently I met sister Dr. Asma Khan. She's a food scientist, but she's getting into commercial research with us. Over time, we have partners with various organizations. The first thing, we partnered with a company called Delio, which does background compliance for angel networks. We partnered with Halal Board of India. It is headed by a very young, dynamic doctor, scientist, businessman, a researcher, and he's one of the pioneers of the Tibbe-Nabawi prophetic medication. So we wanted to partner with the Halal Board, where it's headed by a businessman researcher. and this become very good for us. And he's like a younger brother. I've known him for years. As I said, we partnered with SSC Capital. We also partnered with a company called Educational Partnerships UK, because they will help us with training those ladies and entrepreneurs. We also partnered with UAE Faster Capital. Any startups on this today's discussion, we have partnered with Faster Capital. Anybody has a startup, you can approach us, and we'll help you, connect with Faster Capital, and your startup can be right away worked out. We also partnered with Vietnam Halal Center. It is founded by a very renowned halal, uh, professional, Mr. Ramlan Usman. He used to be the vice president for Halal Development Corporation of Malaysia. He quit the job. He saw an opportunity in Vietnam, and he started the Vietnam Halal Center. Even though Vietnam is only 3% Muslim, but they are targeting 1 billion Muslims in Asia. And they are very focused on to branding and marketing. So, as Professor Hassan said, we need to do branding. It's very critical. We also partnered with a very interesting organization called Umar Business Development. It's based off Italy, and they are trying to create opportunities for halal businesses there, market them. We also partnered with a very company called Halal Nexus from Singapore. It's headed by Mr. Harun Suleiman. He had a startup. He sold out in $1 million, and now he's got into a technology which is helping halal compliance in a better way. And we also partnered with Edge of Innovation. Now, this organization is headed by Mr. Alex, and he's very important figure in the Japanese startup ecosystem. And what he said in the press note is he wants to connect the startups and investors from Japan to the Muslim world, because there's too much negativism about Muslims, and he wants to change it with startups. Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with so much. When you are at the right path, people get connected. So this is a small story all about us. Now we'll come to today's topic. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, the theme of the conference is all about entrepreneurship. Okay. And entrepreneurship is a very cornerstone, because Islam encourages entrepreneurship. When you look at all the Ashabi, Tabain, Taba Tabain, everyone was a businessman. And when you actually read the Sirat of Rasulullah used to be a businessman in the morning, and in the evening, he would just distribute the money. And when you look at Islam also encourages women and men both to pursue business, which is tijara. And the best example you look at is Bibi Khadijah Rajyanathan, the first wife of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and how she believed in Rasulullah and she invested money. That is actually the world's first startup and world's first angel investor investing in a beautiful startup, which was called Islam that time. And when you look at the hadiths, there are various hadiths. If you're an honest businessman, you will be raised with the prophets and the martyrs. Now think about if you're a good entrepreneur, and when an angel network or angels help honest businessmen, they also will be, part of this, on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. When I was starting reading about more on hadith on entrepreneurship and, a business, I came across years back about Hazrat Abdul Rahman bin Auf. He was the richest Muslim, and when you actually research, even in today's time, his wealth that time was $768 billion in 1400 years ago. The reason is he was a smart businessman. Now, when you look at the current standard of Muslim entrepreneurs, they try to be very humble. They don't try to be smart. They don't try to tap the opportunities. They have to look at the Sirat of Hazrat Abdul Rahman Auf. What he did is when he came to Medina, his Ansar partner told him that I will share everything with you. He said, don't share anything with me. Please show me the marketplace. And if you show the marketplace, it will work. Couple of months later, when he moved to Medina and saw the market, one of the days, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Hazrat Khadijah were in the house. And after Isha, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam heard about a lot of noise. He says, what's happening? She asked Hazrat Aisha Razina, what's happening? Can you check? She went to check outside, and she saw a caravan. Some places say 720, some places say 7,200, some places says 72,000 camels. So I will take the least one. It was 720 camels loaded with the best of stuff, gold, silver, everything. And that was a trade caravan headed north to Syria. And Hazrat Abdur Rahman bin Auf was standing in front of the door of Rasulullah. Bibi Aisha Razunatala asked him, what is this? He says, this is my caravan. She got excited. She smiled and she went back inside the house. And Rasulullah said, what happened? She says, this is Abdur Rahman Auf caravan. And he smiled. Then she came outside, and Hazrat Abdur Rahman Auf saw the reflective smile of Rasulullah on Hazrat Aisha's Razunatala's face. And he asked, did he smile? She said, yes. And that very moment, he distributed the wealth directly. Now think about, compare this thing. You're taking, some organizations take charity and then redistribute zakat fitra. And when you compare it with an entrepreneur, you distribute your own money with your own hands. This is the sirat of our ashabi. Make money in giving back. And finally, concluding a very important part of Islam is, if you have 10 sources of income, 9 sources have to be from tijara. Unfortunately, most of the Muslim youngsters are getting into jobs. But if you look at anybody becomes entrepreneur, he makes more money. So entrepreneurship is very important in Islam. Next slide, please. Now, when you compare the same thing in the modern world, entrepreneurs spur economic growth. Entrepreneurs also add to national income. Entrepreneurs create social change. Community development creates innovation, solve a lot of issues, adds revenues to government as taxation. And the most important part is it creates jobs. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're not just making money for yourself, you're doing a holistic development of a whole society. And throw in with a halal vision and halal, aspiration, you're spreading halal ethical to the whole world. Now, very interesting facts about halal consumer market, why we are getting into the halal angels and why it was important. According to various research, we have used Reuters as a research. They're estimating by 2025, the halal consumer market will go to $9.7 trillion. Okay. Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Nigeria are going to be flag holders in this economy. Comprising besides food, there are other ways of businesses happening, and there's a lot of money which is being invested. The Asian Muslim market is huge, which is really untapped. And I said, Vietnam is doing that. Vietnam, even though not a Muslim country, tapping that. And the younger generation, the millennial generation has a lot of aspiration. And every day I'm very impressed that a lot of youth approach me with a lot of fantastic ideas. And that's very interesting. And, but the whole problem comes is the branding. When you look at the halal consumer market, 2 things stand out. One is Islamic finance and one is food. When I talk to non-Muslims in the space, they always talk, oh, it's halal means food. That means our branding has been skewed. And as this is a marketing conference, a lot of people are attending our marketeers. We don't need to skew the thing into just finance. Every Muslim conference, we have only tawakkul, suk. We have not gone beyond that. That's done. We have done with food, but there are other ways. Travel is huge industry. Modest fashion is $20 billion industry. There are other things which is happening. Islamic Fintech is happening. Again, Islamic Fintech, a lot of people are doing only for zakat. If you're doing only zakat, it doesn't work. You have to look at commercial value. Muslims in Asia have created a lot of technology startups. They're growing very fast. And Indonesia is the only Muslim country in the world which has a lot of unicorns coming out. Unicorn is a $1 billion valuation. And there's a huge potential happening. We should use this and grow the market. That's why we got into this market. Next slide, please. Now, when you look at it, various governments have taken a great step and trying to promote halal. You see from America to Australia, there are a lot of halal expos happening. A lot of organizations are doing certifications. A lot of people are trying to do consult. That is fantastic work is happening. Even there are microfinance in Bangladesh, crowdfunding in America. There's a lot of venture capital companies in UK and America, in Southeast Asia, which is doing investment. But these people have, because of legal jurisdiction, because of the business license, they can't be rolled out across the globe. Now, because of they can't be rolled out across the globe, halal businesses and halal entrepreneurs are facing funding challenges. And that's why the businesses are not scaling to multi-million dollar or billion-dollar unicorns. Because there is nothing in the halal space which talks about funding of startups. It talks about home financing, car financing, maybe stock investment, nothing more than that. We have to go a little extra mile. We have come to a level 1, we have to move to level 2 or maybe 3 now. And can you go back again, please? And Indonesia is doing that. Now, why we set up the Halal Angels Net, and what is an angel network? Now, angel networks in the startups is a group of investors. They are on a single platform and they're connected with startups directly. They invest their own money, they do their own due diligence, and that's why it's safer, because we're not endorsing any startup to get money. We're not telling any angel investor to this thing. And when you look at the halal economy, as I told you, there were a lot of microfinance company, there were crowdfunding, there were venture capital. Because of their legal jurisdiction, they can't open offices across the world. And Angels Network is just a matchmaking platform. So on a single business license, we can work from across America to Australia. And that's why we are partnering with local organizations to reach every city and every entrepreneur. And there's a huge market beside the food and finance. There are other things, and that we want to take. And when you look at Vietnam, Vietnam is doing fantastic job in that. Now, if funding challenges are not resolved, there will be no scalability and there will be no growth. And when there's no growth, there's no wealth creations. So that's why we are here, and that's why we want to do that. Next slide, please. Now, this is a slide, maybe it's visible or not, maybe the presentation can be shared later. We have tried to put secondary data on the slide and compared how Muslim countries versus non-Muslim countries, how much is halal businesses, how much is that kind of thing. And when you look at that, Muslim countries, except for few countries, they don't have angel networks, they don't have venture capital, which is very critical for entrepreneurship. And this data, if the organization can share this PowerPoint with the audience, that would be great for this data. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these are the funding sources for startups. When you start a startup is nothing but a new business, and it has taken a new angle. When you talk about startup, only people talk about technology, but startups are beyond technology. It can be a food startup, it can be a fashion startup, it can be a cosmetic startup. So any startup which is a new business is called a startup. When you start a new business, generally use your own funds, or you take funding from your friends and family, or you try to run faster, better, and try to generate small incomes to create investment for your own business. That is called bootstrapping. Okay. Then when you go to the market, you have two kinds of options. Either you go and raise equity, uh, funding through equity offloading, or you go to a bank to get money. Okay. Now, as Muslims, there's a lot of Muslims stay in non-Muslim countries. That means there's a problem because we can't go to the bank. Even though there might be fantastic branding, but if there's no bank to give me, what can I do? And even if they are there, they have very tight criteria. Again, difficult. So what you do is you either approach an angel investors. As I said, angel investors are a group of people, they come together with a common cause of helping entrepreneurship and scaling it up. There's another option is you go to venture capital. But most of the startups, initial stage, go to angel networks. when you're doing seed capital. Seed capital is when you're germinating your idea. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, now this is, we're getting into details. What is an angel network? Angel network is a network of angel investors who are keen to come together and invest. And this has over time become very important when you look at Silicon Valley, Singapore, or wherever there's hot startups happening in Shenzhen in China. There are a lot of investors going with their own money and directly buying it. When you study Apple or when you study Facebook, initially there are a lot of high profile people, they were angel investors investing. Now angel means, angel, you come to rescue the startups. That's why it's called angel. And when you see, compare venture capital, which is a fund, the motivations of venture capital and angel investors are different. Angel investors, because it's their own money, the fund is not driving it, they want to scale up the business. Now, I'll give you an example. When we went to this Muslim school and started one Indian chapati company for these Muslim ladies, unfortunately, COVID has happened, so we have stopped it because it's supposed to be at school. And, we're trying to invest in them that time. My article became viral that, Muslims in India going to poor communities and investing in that. One of my friend, he's the chairman of Indian Hospitality and a very legendary guy. He said, Dr. Malik, I would like to meet you for evening tea. I said, sure. I went there, I talked to him. He says, you're doing fantastic job. I will issue a letter from Indian Hospitality Association that please all these restaurants right now in the city of Pune order at least 10,000 Indian bread, which is called chapati. And, just because angels are connected people, the business gets scalable. If I was not part of that, those ladies would be just making 100 chapatis, which is Indian bread, and selling it out. Angels come, they want to scale it up. They just don't want to keep it small, right? So their motivation is totally different. It's not, valuation. It is all about scaling up business. Venture capital wants to increase the valuation of the startup. Okay, and because it's a personal drive, it's very critical. And that's why we started the Halal Angels Network, because there's a lot of passionate Muslims investors, and even there's a lot of passionate non-Muslim brothers and sisters who want to invest into ethical business. Okay, and they're highly driven people. And when we partnered with all these people, they were highly driven, because when you're individual, that drive is very, exciting. So that's why we got into the Angels Network. Next slide, please. Okay, now this is various data. Why angels are very important and how they're investing money. And how they invest, they first is they want to get into the technology business, then healthcare, and then mobile application, telecom. And according to Kaufman Foundation, which is one of the leading foundations, they say angel investors get 2 times 5% returns, okay, compared to venture capital. Okay, so that means angel investors make money. And when you see in the halal space, Muslims don't have investment opportunities. There might be banks giving loans, but when you look at where can I find somewhere to invest money, it's very difficult beyond that. Because of angel network, they get access to review a lot of startups across the globe. And because it's not a crowdfunding and it's not venture capital, it's not microfinance, they can reach a wider audience to, fish out a lot of startups from a global space. So that's why it's very interesting space we are in. And, startups creates more job, it creates new wealth, and that's the whole drive. That how can we create halal incomes for people who can't be an entrepreneur? He just can be an employee. He can be just a manager. So we need to create a lot of halal employment opportunities. Next slide, please. Okay, if you're not from a high profile society, it's very difficult for you to raise money. Okay, That's why angel network is important, because once a startup or an entrepreneur gets connected to the network, he gets access to people who are angel investors. And that helps him, either to test his idea good or bad, or it's investable or not. And at least he gets some kind of thumbs up or thumbs down validation, and helps him, become a better entrepreneur, get more contacts. When you look at angel investors, they're very because they're highly successful people, they do a lot of due diligence, and due diligence help them to invest in a better way. Now compare that with a bank, and compare that with a venture capital. Compare that. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and it is a discretion of a manager to decide who to get funding. And managers are not investors, right? So they will look at protecting the organization interest. But when you look at angel investors, because it's their own money, their drive is they will do due diligence faster, better, and do a lot of investment. And when in angel investors we have experience, they have a lot of interest in particular category. And when you look at in halal space, now many people we have been talking, they talk about modest fashion. It's a $20 billion industry. A lot of food restaurants want to become franchisees now. Rather than being a halal certified restaurant, they want to go global now. Look at halal guys in America. Now they are global phenomena selling, Arabic food or Muslim food. So that drive is changing, and a lot of investors want to invest. Okay, next slide, please. Now, when you compare, as I said, there are 4 ways of funding sources: angel investors, venture capital, crowdfunding, and microfinance. Angel investors, as I said earlier, it's individual or a group. They do under $1 million investment. They can do more, but this is just average out. They invest directly. They use their own contacts to scale up. Now, when you take a loan from the bank is not going to use their own contacts to scale up your business. Venture capital guys are managers, fund managers, not going to make calls for you. And crowdfunding will not do that. But when you look at angel investors, they will use their own contacts to scale up. That is the biggest difference. And they also support those entrepreneurs by mentoring, giving them guidance, giving them red carpet to events. They take them out, they help them out, because when it's your own money, you would like to be more successful. When you look at venture capital, it's a registered company. They do more than one valuation. And the whole, the objective of venture capital is, when the startup comes and they take equity, they want to increase the valuation. So let's assume the startup was valued at $1 million and XYZ venture capital came in. The minute they came in, the valuation hit $2.5 million. So the next round of funding will be at $2.5 million valuation. So it's venture capital come, it increased the valuation of the company. But it doesn't guarantee you that your business will be profitable. It's just valuation. Whereas angels want your business to have revenue. Okay. And because venture capital comes on board, it helps you raise more capital. Now, the other thing which is now very prevalent in a community is crowdfunding. It's a registered financial company. People put their projects. It's crowdfunded by people, and then people are looking to invest. But majority of times, people who invest on crowdfunding, they are not mentors. They are small ticket investors. Maybe doing $500, $1,000, $2,000. When you're doing small ticket investment, the company which is taking an investment will not take you seriously, because the money invested is very small. But compare that with angel investment, because you're doing a couple of millions of dollars and you're a seasoned professional. That's why the startup or the entrepreneur will want your mentorship. When you look at microfinance, now this has taken a big thing in the Muslim world. When you look at Bangladesh, Dr. Yunus did fantastic job. He got a Nobel Prize. But the challenge for microfinance after some time is it offers small loans. And because it offers small loan, the business don't get scalable. It hits upon a certain revenue model and it doesn't scale. So when you conclude, when you compare all these things, angel investors are the best for entrepreneurship. This is based on a lot of data, and this is based on the experiences we have heard from people, and this is from our own experience. Next slide, please. Now the conclusions are, there are a lot of Muslim entrepreneurs, but there's none of them have become $1 billion unicorn because they face challenges. We don't have startup ecosystem in the Muslim consumer market. That's where we come in. We fill the void, and we are Halal Angels Network is the startup ecosystem for the halal consumer market. So any investor or any startup wants to come in, it's a whole marketplace. And we are showing the market, as Hazrat Abdul Rahman Auf said, show me the market. We are showing the market to all these startups. Okay, inshallah, alhamdulillah. And we want to resolve these funding issues. How? We would like to create events, programs, cohorts where high profile people can mentor, train people. And at our events and this, we would not want people to share their experience. We want them to just handhold them at the right time. Because startups and entrepreneurs want that kind of big brother attitude to help them out, rather than giving them academic, constant. And when you look at all those four things, venture capital, crowdfunding, and Qarza Hasna is just finance. But angels not only invest, they help you grow your revenue, scale up business. They introduce to a lot of people. And angels experience mentorship is very important. Without this, growth becomes negligible. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Tausif. Very interesting and beneficial talk.
Can you speak louder? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, little. Can you speak a little loud?
No, I'm speaking according to the best of my ability, but my internet maybe could be a little bit here. I see time. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it is a very beneficial to all of us. All of us are academicians, and personally, I have learned and I've benefited a lot. So the only thing which I have is, for me is, and I'm not sure about how many, attendees will agree that in academia, we don't like to take that much risk, right? So what kind of suggestions do you have for us, like keeping our jobs as well, and then like looking into this angel, becoming like angel investor as well?
Okay, very interesting question. It's very important. See, in academia, I also teach. We become very secure, and when you become secure, because it's a very peaceful job. You enjoy it because that's what we all teachers wanted to be. This is the best job on the planet. And when we enjoy our job, we become complacent because we're enjoying teaching, right? We are creating the next generation of great people on the planet, right? And they will create generation. So the teacher becomes very happy looking at the success of the students. But teachers should also look at the success of their own self, because they should also impress their own teachers, right?
It's true.
Right? Now I'll give you an example. Last year, my mentor, my professor passed away, Professor Sadi Hassan. And, he was a finance genius. He was a paraplegic. He met to an accident. After 2 years of coma, he became a finance genius. And he started challenging theories of, blue water strategies, blue ocean strategies and stuff in Europe and stuff. And one day when I was immigrating to America, I went to him and I said salam, and and that was the last stop before going to the airport. And he had a lot of academic people because he was unmarried, and people came to see him. So when I left, there was a professor, physicist sitting with him. When I exited from the house, I was wearing my shoes, and he thought I've left. And then he told the other professor, who was he? The professor said, no, I didn't know him. He says, he was my student. I'm so
Wow.
proud. He's
Mhm,
created a lot of things for other people. He's
mhm,
created jobs. He's an entrepreneur. He's a pioneer. Like at the age of 21, he created a format for advertising. At the age
wow.
of 22, I created, had a company with Popstar, Lucky
Mhm,
Ali. He wanted to do, Islamic, software those days. Did a lot of stuff. At the age of 25, the government of Oman invited him to co-author a book. Right
wow.
at the age of 26, he created a environmental campaign written on a bus
Mhm,
ticket, which became like it's become like a environmental poster sold across the world. Then he started the Oman Press Club. It was not there. He went on talking, and I stood there for 10 minutes.
Mash-
And he says he's also a professor. He teaches at premium universities. So he's not like us, not
mhm,
investing money,
mhm,
like other people. He's like me because I do stockbroking, I do consulting. That's what my professor used to do beside
Correct.
his teaching job. So I encourage
Correct.
all these teachers to think, and I will throw in very
Yes.
important thing. My peer sahab, Hazrat Saleh Mia Badaiyun,
Mhm,
my ustad, when I heard his lecture at the age of 16, I was very
mhm,
mesmerized. He taught something called Al-Fikr, which is not
mhm.
taught at Islamic universities anymore.
You're right.
Okay. And it is taught at Western schools. Now,
Mhm,
what is Al-Fikr? When you take vast amounts of data, you process it, it becomes information. When you further process information, it becomes single line knowledge, which is a dissertation topic,
You're
right?
right.
When you look
Yep.
at the 1,000-year ancient history of Muslim pioneers, they wanted to
Mm,
decorate the masjid, not with organic
mhm,
colors. So they went and
mm,
created the periodic table,
mhm.
right? They wanted
Yep.
to pray exactly at 5 times. So they created Sakchi, Arabic watch, which is still there in Syria, right?
You're right. Yep.
Right? They wanted
Mm,
not to use idols or any kind of thing, in the masjid. So they came with
mhm,
geometric designs, which is still there everywhere. So it is the
mhm,
creation of scientists. What they did is they did al-fikr, right? I'll throw in very important thing about Ibn Sina.
mhm,
Now, our academic scholars have got limited into a personal domain. I don't want to be into that
mm,
because of that profound impact of my sheikh 30 years ago. What happened is when you go to Islamic doctor, okay,
yeah.
sisters, excuse me if I'm using little language here about particular situation, not offensive language. When you went to an Islamic doctor and he would say, you say, Islamic scholar, not a doctor, Sheikh, I have a headache.
Mhm,
First thing he would ask is, are you hungry?
mhm,
And he would feed you. Okay.
mhm.
He